Today we're going to be talking about one of the worst things ever happening in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, and probably the biggest mistake Konami's ever made. So let's get into the video, and make sure to leave a like if you like the video, and subscribe for more content like this. So without further ado, let's get to it. So today, like I said, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest mistakes Konami has ever made with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. And no, I'm not talking about Master Duel 3 Pendulums. Some of you might disagree with me there, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we are talking about erratas. Now, if you don't know what an errata is, it's when Konami updates the text on a card via a new printing or through the database in order to do one of a few things. Now, one of these things is just to update the card text with problem-solving card text, to clarify a card's effect, or to add it to an archetype, the way Amazon Archers became Amazonist Archers. The way Summon Skull has on its effect, this card is always treated as an Archfiend card. Now, these aren't necessarily a problem. This doesn't affect the functioning of a card and may actually increase its usability within the game, so that's fine. But there's another way that Konami uses erratas which is really problematic, and that is to power creep cards that were too powerful and have been on the Forbidden and Limited list in order to bring them back. One example is Chaos Emperor Dragon, Envoy of the End, which saw a huge nerf to its power, which allowed it to come off the Forbidden and Limited list. Things like Dark Strike Fighter, which took a huge nerf to its effect in order to make sure that it could come off the list. Now, sure, you may say that it's healthier for the game because these cards were too powerful and they needed to be on the Forbidden and Limited list. I agree with you, those cards needed to be on the Forbidden and Limited list, but those cards had a place in historical formats. Things like Dark Magician of Chaos. That card's no longer on the Forbidden and Limited list, but if you look at the original effect, the card was far more powerful than what it is today. Not only has it had a hard once per turn slapped on it, but the effect to add a spell card back from your graveyard is now only happening in the end phase instead of on summon. Which means, if you try and play Dark Magician of Chaos today, it's a different card to what it was back in the day. And that's where the problem lies. When Konami erratas these cards by changing their effects, what they're actually doing is removing those cards from the card pool. The original effects of those cards have been erased from the card pool of Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's quite a problem. Take Master Duel, right? Master Duel has now introduced the ability to craft certain banned cards, and they're allowing more and more cards to be crafted as time goes on. That seems to be the intention. So if you want to play old formats like GOAT format, like Edison format, where some of those cards are now banned in modern format, you can, right? Well, no. Because if you're trying to play GOAT format and you're trying to play Chaos, you can't play Dark Magician of Chaos, because the card no longer functions like it did back then. If you want to play something like Crash Card Virus saw a huge errata and a huge nerf to its power level, which means you can't play it in historical formats because it's not coded like that on the system anymore. If you try and play Ring of Destruction used to be hugely powerful, able to destroy any monster on the field and inflict that damage to both players, which was a really nice way to burn for game. But Ring of Destruction doesn't work that way anymore. Which means, if you try and play it that way in decks that could play it at that time, you can't because it's not coded that way. In normal duels, that doesn't mean as much because you can always play by the old erratas. But if you're trying to play these old formats on things like EDO Pro or Master Duel, you actually need to play with the old versions of the cards. Now, EDO Pro has the old versions of the cards, which is helpful, but Master Duel doesn't. So if you're trying to play old formats, you can't, because those cards no longer exist. That's the biggest problem with erratas, I think. They don't allow the original card to exist. What do I think they should have done? You can print new cards. Leave those cards that were too powerful on the Forbidden and Limited list. Print new cards that are related to the old ones, but not the same, and have them have those effects that you wanted the errata to have. The problem is Konami wants these iconic cards to be off the ban list so that they can be played, but nerfs their power level so significantly. Things like Firewall Dragon, things like Chaos Emperor Dragon, things like D-Mark. They're off the Forbidden and Limited list, which means you can play them, so Konami gets the appeal of selling them again. Firewall Dragon, CED, D-Mark, they are iconic cards. But when you play them, they're not the same. They are simply cards that have the same name, but have different effects. For me, that doesn't make any sense at all, and I don't like it. So what I would like Konami to do is just print new cards. Leave those cards on the ban list if they need to be, but don't destroy the effects completely and expect people to be happy about it. That's just not the way it works. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more content like this. Thanks everyone. See you next time.